Okay, like, I'm a little perplexed here. I don't know how the President of the United States can say that he's delivered for working families in America, as he's now claiming, when in fact, working families are facing way more challenges than perhaps they have in 40 years. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Trish Regan Show. I am Trish. It's so good to have you here. And this is almost funny, except it's not. I mean, it's funny in that people think they can lie like this. I mean, it's disgusting how much they will sit there with a straight face and they will tell you one thing when in fact reality is something else entirely. Such as the headline here that went out, talking point memo to members of Congress 2021. POTUS delivered results for working families. I mean, I don't know what working families he's talking about. I mean, maybe he's delivering results for all the families that are coming here illegally. I mean, that's a big result, right? You get to come to the United States under Joe Biden. In fact, border numbers have increased significantly. It's actually one of the big problems he's got going on with his administration right now. But what results has he delivered for working families? Working families are paying 59% more for heat this year than they did last. Median incomes are down. Wages, real wages, I know that nobody actually wants to talk about those in the mainstream media. I'm a little amazed at how they just ignore inflation when they look at wage growth. So if you got wage growth that's up 1%, suddenly that's a victory. You can be up 5% and it's still not a victory. You see, not when inflation is as high as it is, topping 6%. And by the way, I predict that by January, by February, you're actually going to see prices on everyday goods go up to 7, 8%. But this guy wants to sit there and tell us that things are better. I mean, has he become that delusional? Perhaps. I actually have more to say on this, which I can't say here right now on this podcast or on the YouTube platform. So I encourage you to check me out on Rumble and on Locals, which I just joined because we can create a community there, a private community where we can actually have freedom of speech, like real freedom of speech. Imagine that. So go check me out on Locals, where I am, trishregan.locals.com. But anyway, I'm amazed that anybody can have a series of talking points like that, and the mainstream media just laps it up. I mean, kind of like they're lapping up the whole dog thing. Biden gets a new puppy. Wow, talking about a way of trying to distract from reality. You've got COVID that's multiplying at a rate we never could have, apparently this White House, because they don't anticipate much, never could have anticipated. Just like they never could have anticipated that Joe Manchin would have done the about face and said, yeah, I'm not okay with this giant Build Back Better plan. I don't buy any of that. They try and pretend like that they're so naive. Oh, shocker, Joe Manchin. Oh, shocker, Omicron. Oh, shocker, inflation. No, guys, like everyone saw this coming. Like everyone. I mean, I've been sitting here pounding the table since July of 2020 telling you all inflation is in the works, inflation is in the works. And by the way, that was under the previous administration. And then Joe Biden did everything in his power to ensure that inflation was in the works, along with the help of Jerome Powell. So yeah, we've got mass inflation. Anthony Fauci has been nonstop warning us of all the variants of COVID, so that shouldn't take anyone by surprise. We've got a lot of stuff out there that is pretty obvious, and yet this White House can't quite seem to get its head around. So instead, it comes up with all these fake talking points and these fake stories. And now the latest and greatest is the new dog. And I was scrolling through my Twitter feed. By the way, if you're not following me on Twitter, do that at Trish_Regan. But I'm scrolling through my Twitter feed and I see everybody on the left talking about the new puppy. And that's really sweet and everything. And I actually love dogs and love puppies. And I've got a super cute dog myself that I adore, but by the way, is way better behaved just way better behaved than Joe Biden's dog's ever dreamed of being. And so he gets this new dog, and like suddenly we're supposed to forget about the failure of his policy, including his inability to get Build Back Better through, which, by the way, he should have been able to do, like, in some way, shape, or form. He should have insisted that infrastructure be his victory. I'm just like, let me take off my conservative hat here for a second and just talk to you about like basic chess, right? You know you're not going to get Build Back Better because you don't have a Senate. You don't have an overwhelming majority. So you may, if you're Joe Biden, think, oh, wouldn't this be really great if I could get through this giant FDR-like agenda? You may want that. You weren't elected for that, by the way. You were definitely not elected for that. Americans elected Joe Biden because they thought he wasn't an extremist like Bernie Sanders. So he goes in, he sits down in the White House when he first comes in and hears all these historians tell him how wonderful it would be if he could get through this giant social agenda. So he decides that's what he wants. But he doesn't have the votes. He doesn't have the Senate. There was no chance in HELL any of it was ever going to happen. But being that he's not that smart, he pursued it anyway. He should have been like one and done. We got infrastructure. I did a bipartisan deal, and he would have a lot of people, I think, in the middle giving him more credit. But instead, everyone sees him for the failure that he is. A total, complete, utter failure as a leader, as a president. So you can sit there and tell us that you're delivering results for working families, but you know that's not actually the truth. At least we do have one Joe in Washington that, has the ability to stand up against this system. Don't forget what the White House was actually doing. Joe Manchin was willing to stand up to all the pressure, and I give him so much credit for that, because the White House was out there telling us all, and I don't mean me specifically, because again, I see through the BS. Thank you very much. Like, I get what they're doing. I see through the spin. They were out there telling everybody that Joe Manchin was a yes, when in fact, the reality was anything but that. He had telegraphed repeatedly. Go read his Twitter feeds or the op-ed he put in the Wall Street Journal. He had telegraphed that he had no interest in spending this much money on social programs that didn't make a lot of sense, especially at a time when the country's dealing with mass inflation. I mean, you want to get more inflation? That's how you do it. That's how you do it. Anytime the government does anything, whether it be education, whether it be healthcare, guess what? Your costs go way up. They wanted to get into the daycare business. So what? Now mom and dads aren't going to be able to afford daycare because Joe Biden would have driven the prices up so much? No, thank you. We're dealing with enough inflation as it is. This inflation has become so significant and so bad under policies from this administration that a lot of Americans are not going to be able to keep up. I mean, they're saving their money right now for retirement. They're saving, hoping that one day they're going to have enough to live on. But what happens when inflation keeps growing at a rate of 6% or 8% or even 10%? And I predict we're going to get there. Well, what happens to your savings? It's eroded, right? Because your dollar does not go as far because it takes that many more dollars to buy anything. You know what's incredible, by the way, just a quick aside, they don't actually factor in housing costs into CPI, the Consumer Price Index. They don't factor in housing because housing has clearly gone up in a way. And so that became too complicated. Back in the 1980s, they said, okay, let's just ditch that. We're not going to put housing into the price index anymore. Well, I'm sorry, people's prices are going up. Food prices, energy prices, housing prices, and yes, prices for everything else. So what do? How do you protect yourself? It's the reason why I keep saying you want a diversified portfolio, you want to be invested, and you want that diversification. Part of that diversification includes looking at things like precious metals. Specifically, I would advocate for gold. It's something that's in my own portfolio, and for gold, the team I trust is Legacy Precious Metals. They've been in business for decades. They know how to help you navigate this space. So whether you want a gold-backed IRA or whether you want gold, as in physical gold in your basement, it's something that they can help you do. And there's a lot of things that you need to think about that's associated, for example, with having gold in your basement, or having a gold back IRA, or having gold in a safe deposit box at a bank. This is what they can assist you with. So give them a call today, 1-866-589-0560, 1-866-589-0560. LegacyPMinvestments.com is their website. You can download their guide there. But if you call them, 866-589-0560, tell them that Trish sent you. I've told you before, I know the guys over there really, really well, and I promise you they'll take good care of you. But think about it. Make sure that you are diversifying right now, because we're in an environment where increasingly the middle class is going to be squeezed. That is what's happening. We have Joe Biden saying that he's delivered all these results for working families, when in fact, we've seen anything but that. I mean, let's just be honest with each other. Middle class Americans are having a much harder time, because you know what? It costs a lot of money to fill up the gas tank now. It costs a lot more money for groceries. It costs a lot more money for everything. And even if wages are going up, they're not going up at a fast enough pace. So don't lie through your teeth. I mean, I'm so offended by that. Can't anybody be honest? You know, there's a lot you can't say right now. You know that. I know that. Obviously, big tech is enforcing that, which is why I want to remind you to go meet up with me on Locals, trishregan.locals.com. It's really important that we protect our First Amendment. And the way you protect your First Amendment is by continuing every single day to exercise your freedom of speech. I can't fully do it here, but I can over there. And that's why you have some wonderful conservatives and independents and people that are just, I would say, independent thinkers, right? That's what matters. We need more independent thinkers and people that are willing to stand up and say that's not okay, or let's think about that, or let's question that. So anyway, you can find us over there, my community, trishregan.locals.com. And Merry Christmas, everyone. I'm really excited for Christmas this year. I have a lot of people that are going to be visiting over the holidays, and I'm looking forward to seeing family and friends and enjoying this moment and reflecting on, you know, as much as I don't think Joe Biden's done much for working families, just reflecting on how we, I think, as a nation, I do believe, because I'm always an optimist, I'm always glass half full. I do believe that we're recognizing and waking up to these challenges that are out there. In fact, if you look at any of the polls, you see Americans are so frustrated right now with Joe Biden and this entire team. They get it. We get it. We know what's going on. And so I really do. I have faith in the American people. I have faith in you. And I want you to have a really wonderful and very Merry Christmas.